So how many of you love to get a good deal? How many people love it when they find something for way less money than they should have paid for it, or even for free? I find myself actually fixated on this a little bit too much. If I find something that's a really good deal, I get something of great value with little cost, I think about it over and over again. I think about how much money I saved, and it's almost like I'm stocking that up in my bank account or something, even though it's not really there. I don't actually have the money, but I have the thing of great value, a wonderful deal. If I can fix something that I would have had to repair or replace, I'm always thinking about how much money did I earn or save in that moment. I want to show you the best deal I've found in the last, probably the last year at least, the best deal, okay? Ready? Is this car right here. Boom, this is the best deal I've had in the last year. Now, how many of you are familiar with this car? Yeah, probably most of the room here on site. For those of you who joining us online, most of the room here on site is familiar with this car. This car used to be formerly known as Pastor Phil's car. That's what it was. And so this is a 2007 Pontiac Vibe. And here's why I'm putting this up here. This picture, I took this, I guess, a couple of weeks ago. And one of the young adults in our church was asking me for advice on what kind of car to get as a first car. And of course, my advice, it all depends on what you want. If you want the status symbol, if you want the flashiest thing in the world, if you want something that smells new, well then, this is not the car for you. But if you want the best value, if you want an amazing deal, I said, you should get a car, maybe even this exact same vehicle. So I was sending this person pictures of this car and saying, when Pastor Phil and his brother bought this same car at the same time, did you know that happened? They both bought the same car. They're twins, and they bought the same car at the same time, 2007, also the same year that something else started. Community of Hope Church started that year. So this car is very connected to our church. At that time, I don't know if they fully realized, they did all their research and they're good at it. I don't know if they fully realized how genius purchasing this car was. Let me tell you a little bit about this car. First of all, it is inexpensive. You might even call it cheap, man. This car, it is the same as the Toyota Matrix, but it costs like half. Right now, you could go on Craigslist and buy this car, not from me. You cannot have mine. This is mine now. But you can buy another one just like it for about $2,000 in good condition. The Toyota Matrix, that's the same, similar year, similar condition, costs $4,000 to $5,000. The only difference between the cars is the branding. That's it. You get to have the little status symbol that says Toyota. And you get to pay twice as much. Number two, this car, because it's got a Toyota engine, it is super reliable. It's super reliable. Right now, this car, how old is it? I guess it's 13 years old, like our church. I would trust this car right now to drive all the way across Canada and back. I am confident it would not break down. Not only that, if you're talking about a young adult, and I was talking to a young adult in this case, here's one of the biggest reasons I would buy this car. Let's go to the next picture. Boom! The seats fold down, and you can put a full twin mattress in the back. That means this car is like, if you're a young adult, you're a single person, this car is like a mobile mini RV. And what is better than a mobile mini RV and a car with good gas mileage at the same time? Are you going out to buy the 2007 Pontiac Vibe yet? No? Nobody's got any money? Well, I got this one for free. It was amazing. It was given to me. It had a few things that need to be worked on. The other thing I'll say about this car is that Pastor Philip, I'm so impressed. He took care of this car amazingly well. I have never seen a car with the oil as clean as the oil in this car, or the engine compartment. Working on it is it's like a dream come true. Everything's clean, everything just works. It's fantastic. Praise God. Grace from God through Pastor Philip. Okay, so enough about this car. We're going to jump into a series today, a very mini series about money. And the series is entitled Well Spent, as in money well spent. How do we get the most out of our money? How do we get the most value for how we spend our money and use the resources that God has given to us. Money well spent. That Pontiac Vibe, since I spent $0 on, no, actually, Pastor Philip made me pay him $10. I forgot. It wasn't free. He made me pay him $10 because you're not allowed to give away a car in BC to people who aren't your immediate family. So I paid him $10. That was money well spent. Money well spent. Okay, so we're going to be talking about money, and sometimes in churches when we talk about money, the tone can get negative. Right? Isn't there a verse in the Bible that says money is the root of all evil? Isn't there a verse that says that? No, there's not. There's not. There's a verse that says the love of money is the root of all evil. The Bible absolutely does not say money is evil in itself. In fact, there are very few things that are evil in themselves. It's only when they're used in a twisted, wrong way that they become evil or wrong. So we're going to be talking about money in a very positive way, and we're going to start out by looking back to the beginning before there even was money. All right, so we'll start out by thinking about Genesis chapter 1, chapter 2, the very beginning, human beings. We're going to pull a few points out of that. Then we're going to look at very briefly the history of money, why it exists. Then we'll look at some traps that have to do with money. And then we're going to get to, at the end of this message, what's the purpose of money? What's it really for? Because the purpose determines how you're going to use it, right? Just like the Pontiac Vibe might be the right car for you if, like me, you want nothing more than the best value and a mini mobile RV. But if you want the flashiest thing in the world, well, then it's not the car for you, right? It depends on the purpose. How you spend your money, what the right choice to make depends on what your goal is. So we're going to look at what is the actual purpose of money. So let's start in the Garden of Eden. All right, so God made the whole world. He makes the whole universe. He makes the earth. He fills it with all kinds of life. Genesis chapter 1, he fills it with plants. He fills it with animals in the ocean. He fills it with animals on the land. And then he plants a garden, right? It's called the Garden of Eden. Yeah, this is a super famous story, so I hope many of you have heard of it. This Garden of Eden. And then at the very end of creating all these things, he creates something very special. What does he create? Human beings. He creates human beings. Male and female, he creates them in his image. It says he creates human beings. And he gives them a mission. And that mission is restated a couple of ways. The first way that it's stated in Genesis chapter 1 is that those human beings are supposed to multiply and rule the earth. They are the ones who are going to be in charge of this amazing creation. Think how amazing the earth is. And I don't know if you've ever thought about, it is remarkable that humans are actually in charge of it. We are in charge of it. That's remarkable. And so God gives the human beings this earth. They're going to start out just in this garden, but eventually the goal is to multiply and then rule the earth. And the implication there is not that they're going to just dominate the earth or, boss the earth around, do whatever they want with it. They are going to rule the earth in a good way, the way that God rules things, for its good, taking care of it. This is restated in a different way in Genesis chapter 2. So in this chapter, he makes the Garden of Eden, he puts the human being in the garden, and he gives the human being a mission. And the mission is, do you know what it is? It's to take care of the garden, to take care of it. Okay, so the way that we can think of this, if you're on site, you've got some notes that you brought in with you when you came in, you got at the front door. If you're not on site, you can write this down anyway. This is the first point for today. This is basically a synopsis in one way of Genesis chapter 2 is this. God says to human beings, the title of the message is Take Care of It, but let's go to the point. God says to human beings this. He says, here's some stuff. Take care of it. Here is some stuff. Take care of it. Now, it's not just some stuff, right? I mean, that's an understatement, isn't it? The entire earth. The entire earth, all of nature, all of creation, all of these animals, just astonishing miracles that God has made. He says, here it is. I give it to you. take care of it. Now, it still belongs to God in a certain sense, right? It doesn't belong to the human beings in that they can do whatever they want with it if what they want is not what God wants, but they're given a job by God to take care of it in the way that He would take care of it more and more. All right, now we're going to keep bringing back this image of this amazing car that was given to me. This is similar, right? So this car was taken very good care of by Pastor Philip. The oil was changed super regularly. It's immaculate in the engine compartment. Maybe the inside of the car wasn't quite as immaculate. I'll just say that. But it was given to me. Now part of the reason he told me why he gave it to me is he said, I know. He said it in a little bit different words than this. But he said, I know if I give it to you, you're going to take care of it. So when you give someone something, it's actually often implied, even though you might not require it, it's implied that you would like them to take care of what you've given them. Yes? Would you agree? One time, actually, as a young adult, I had a car very similar to that one, and I had taken great care of this car. It burned just a little bit of oil, but I could have had this car, keep topping it up, keep changing the oil regularly. I could have run it for 10 more years. I sold it to my friend. A month later, the engine blew because he never topped it up with oil. How do you think I felt after that? I mean, I had the money. It wasn't unfair exactly. It was his car, but I felt like, you wrecked my car, man. I gave you this thing for a good deal. I didn't just give it to him for free, but I gave him a really good deal, and I had taken care of this, and then he blew it up in 2 months. Oh, I'm never selling him a car again or giving him anything. That's ridiculous. So this is kind of a principle of life, and it's how we see our human race starting out in our relationship with God. God says to us, here's some stuff. Take care of it. We'll get to more on why he says that as we move forward. Now, of course, he gives them everything in the entire earth, doesn't he? Every single thing he gives for their use, right? Nothing does he withhold from them. Oh, wait, he withholds one thing. He gives them the entire earth, but he says, make sure you don't eat this one thing. And of course, what do? They eat the one thing, right? And everything falls apart after that. This is called the fall. Human beings disobey God. The one thing that he says not to mess with, I'm giving you this car, just make sure you always top up the oil. The one thing he does is not top up the oil. God gives us the entire earth. There's this one fruit I want you to not eat. We go and eat it. This is ridiculous, and it causes all the problems that we see in the world. Sin, evil, death come into the world through this. All right, now imagine the situation right after that happens. Then they get kicked out of the garden, right? Because if you gave someone a car and they don't take care of it, and you gave it to them for free, what might you do? If that car wasn't in their name and you could legally do it, you might take that car back from them, right? Now, God doesn't take the entire world back from us. We'll get to why. But he takes back the Garden of Eden from us. This place that I made that was all perfect, just the way it should be, no, you don't get to be there anymore. You got to go kind of make your own place outside, okay? So he kicks the human beings out of the garden. They have to go out on their own. Now, here we're going to get to why money? And why is money such a good thing, actually, overall? The effect of money on our society and our world is good, even though there are many dangers associated with it. Imagine what life was like for the first number of generations of the human race. Actually, for the first, who knows how long? Hundreds of years, for sure, maybe thousands. What was life like before they had money? Well, two things I'll point out. Fallen human beings, number one, are lazy and don't like to do work, right? So some people were doing some of the work, but other people were doing nothing, and there wasn't much to motivate them. Number two, fallen human beings, we all have different skills, right? We all have different abilities, different giftings in our life, and we are actually designed to need each other, right? So one person might be good at one thing, one person's good at another. On their own, they'd have a really tough life because they're not good at all the things. One person knows how to grow food in the ground, another person knows how to hunt for food. But if they separate and they stay apart, one guy's eating nothing but bread and the other guy's eating nothing but meat. Wouldn't it be better if they could get together and share, right? Only, do sinful, fallen human beings know how to share? Do we? Until we're taught and we're trained and we're given systems that build structure into our lives to help us do that and encourage us to do that, we are very bad at sharing things. And so what happened in these early days was just constant chaos and war. If somebody had something that you wanted, you just went and tried to take it if you were strong enough. What kind of world would that be? And so I know sometimes we think money just developed because it's easier than bartering for things. But I'm going to tell you today, money developed to help deal with this deep sin issue and help us learn how to share things in an effective way. That's a huge part of the role of money. And in fact, the systems that are built up around money, as they developed throughout history, they became more and more effective at motivating people to do good things. How many of you, now maybe everybody in here is just really high character, how many of you who are adults would work 40 hours a week if you didn't need any money? A couple of you. Yeah, maybe. If you were independently wealthy and you didn't need a thing, you had $1 billion and you would never need to work, would you work? But the world needs you to work. We all need each other. We need the gifts that other people have. We need to serve each other. So if we didn't need it, if we weren't motivated by that need, most of us wouldn't do it. All right. As this money thing developed, it motivated us. We got better. It improved the world, but there were still lots of problems. And the development of money and systems, we're not going to go into a whole history lesson today, but I do want to show you a couple of pieces. First, let me show you the coins that are here. As our systems of money developed, they got more and more sophisticated, but in the beginning, we really didn't know how to use money effectively and how to make it work well. The first thing people did was just find something, like gold or silver, and use that to trade for other things and use that to pay people then for jobs that they did so they'd be motivated to actually do them. But money is actually quite a complicated thing. And there were things that people had to develop the theory of money to the place where we are at today, where it actually works most of the time really, really well. This is a really interesting coin. It's from the Roman Emperor Diocletian. And during his day, you might think of the Roman Empire as this really sophisticated machine that was running really well. Well, not so much. It collapsed, right? So it must not have been running all that well. And there's all kinds of theories out there about why the Roman Empire collapsed, and there's lots of different reasons why. One of the reasons why the Roman Empire collapsed is a little word, inflation. And the Romans didn't understand. They had no economic theory that could explain inflation. Inflation is when things start to cost more and more money. And the Romans had no theory on why that happened. They thought it was an anomaly and maybe just people were choosing to do the wrong things. And so they tried to enforce by law, the opposite direction. They tried to enforce deflation by law. During the reign of the Emperor Diocletian, during 10 years in his reign, inflation was 100% over those 10 years. During 10 years of his reign. So something that whatever it cost at the beginning of the 10 years, it was double that cost by the end of the 10 years, and they had no idea why. And so this caused, of course, the empire to fall apart in many ways, even though their money was made out of silver and gold. It's still inflation happened. They had no idea why. Systems of money were good at that period in history, but they needed to become much better. We can see inflation. This is another one of my favorite pictures on inflation. Let's go to the next image. Any of you ever seen this image before? I love this one. This is an image from Germany at the end of World War I. And I don't know how well you can see this image. Of course, it's old school. It's a little grainy. It's black and white. This is a picture of a woman loading her furnace to heat her house with stacks of cash. Stacks and stacks of money that a year before this would have, purchased a mansion. They are absolutely worthless. Firewood costs more than that entire stack of money. and so she's burning it instead of trying to buy things with it. Whoa. Isn't that an image of how temporary money is? And the balance maybe that our system of money is in. Okay, we won't get bogged down in this too much. As we went through history, our systems of money had to increase in sophistication. And today, right now, at the moment, despite what you hear on the news sometimes, our systems of money are actually working pretty well. They're working pretty well. Even in what we think of as, big economic downturns, right? Like 2008, there was a big economic downturn. Or right now, during COVID, a big economic problem, right? But compare that to this. Is this happening to us? Or compare that to what the situation might have been like before money was invented. And you will see that even though there are problems, and we're never going to fix it all, because really the deep problems in the world are problems of the human heart, you'll see that money actually works quite well today, and it is a force for good in the world, mostly, because it helps us manage the fact that deep down human beings are not very good people, most of us. All of us. All right, so that's a little lesson on the history of money. Now let's go into our financial traps. And to talk about financial traps, I'm going to use a few video illustrations here. What are the traps we could get caught in with money? And then what is the real purpose of money? How should we be using it? I was working on, some of the days during the week I work from home. I have a little home office. And I was working from home one day this week, and my youngest son came in to help me work because he was bored. And so for about 45 minutes, I got no work at all done, and we were just giggling and laughing hysterically about dumb things, silly words. But in the middle of that, he came up with this idea. He's like, I was actually trying to get him to help me write the sermon. That's what I was trying to do. And so this sermon is about money. This message is about money. What could we do? And he said, as a fun idea, Dad, why don't we get out your phone and just type in the word money, and then use that, that predictive game where you just hit one of the three words that comes up and see what comes up after the word money if you just pick and choose different words, okay? And we came up with 3 sentences that are astonishingly good, all right? So here's the first one. Let's play that video. Money to pay off the mortgage. Money to pay off the mortgage. Isn't that a great sentence? And I don't know if you noticed, but right before it said mortgage, there was a couple of choices there. One was mortgage, one was plane. And I thought to myself, when this sentence came up on my phone, I thought to myself, Google knows nothing. They know nothing. Number one, I don't even have a mortgage. Number one, I certainly don't have a plane that I'm trying to pay off. But money to pay off the mortgage, okay? So, actually, that's not, oh, yeah, I got that, I think I got that. Hold on a second, guys. Oh, yeah, good. Money to pay off the mortgage. All right, so here's where we are. One of the traps that we can fall into with money. Now, it's not wrong to pay off a mortgage. That's a good thing, to have a house, pay off your debts, and have the things that you need. Money to pay off a plane? Let's think about that for a minute. Is that wrong? Well, no, it depends. It depends on how God is leading you, but here's one of the traps that we can fall into with money, and this is the next point for your notes. Trap number 1. We can start to think, we can fall into the trap of believing that the purpose of money is more money or more stuff. The purpose of money is just to accumulate more and more. This is one of the traps that we can fall into. I don't know if you remember, how many of you are old enough to remember, many of you are, right after 9/11, 2001, the President of the United States got on national TV, international TV, and this terrible tragedy had just happened, terrorist attack, and the Twin Towers had fallen. And what did he tell people to do? Does anybody know? Go shopping. The way to fight this was to go shopping and spend more and more. Now, I'm not going to get into all of that. There's a whole economic theory behind that. And of course, financial systems are very complicated. So I'm not necessarily saying that that was a bad thing to do in that moment. But there is in our culture, there's a way of thinking that says, don't fix things. Don't take good care of things. Just spend more and more and more. And get more and more and more. Try to accumulate and try to spend as much as you can. And in fact, even most of the things that we purchase in the stores, I don't know if you know this, they are designed to wear out within a certain period of time. They're not designed to last as long as possible. They're designed to wear out so that the system can keep going and we can buy more and more things. So this is actually a trap, and this is clearly not the purpose of money that's given in the Bible. The purpose of money is not just to get more and more stuff or to have more and more money. Another way to see this is just by looking at people's character. We can tell, even without the Bible, I think we could tell by our the instincts that God has put in us to tell what's good and what's not. If you ran into someone who is the kind of person who just wastes things all the time, who wrecks the things that they have, and they spend as much money as they possibly can, would you say that they have good character? If you ran into a person who saves diligently and stocks away money for a rainy day and they take care of the things that they have, wouldn't you automatically think, this is a person of strong character? We can tell that this trap is a trap. It's not true. Just by looking at the nature of human beings, what kind of human beings this belief would produce. All right, we're going to go into trap number 2 now. But first, the next predictive text video. Check this out. Money is going to be a great weekend. Money is going to be a great weekend. You can see this is real deal. I'm not making this up. I just hit the next button. Money is going to be a great weekend. What does this represent for us? Well, the next trap that we can fall into money with is this, trap number 2. We can believe wrongly that the purpose of money is my own enjoyment. And this, even more than the first one, is a very, very common trap for people to fall into in subtle ways. In subtle ways. There's a very famous sermon by a pastor in the United States named John Piper. Sermon's probably 30 years old now. But the key line of the sermon is, don't waste your life. And in the sermon, he reads this article that was in the newspaper about this couple that had achieved their dream. They had worked really, really hard throughout their careers and their lives and saved up tons of money, and they were able to retire by the age of 50. Early retirement, and they moved to Florida right away with that retirement money, and they spent most of their time, the article said, walking on the beach collecting seashells. And if you ever have a chance to watch that message, it is powerful. John Piper just looks up and says, the purpose of their life has become collecting seashells. Now, collecting seashells isn't bad, but don't waste your life. They worked all this time so that they could collect seashells on the beach because that's what they like. This is a trap. The purpose of money is not your own enjoyment. That is not the primary purpose. Now, some of you might say, well, come on, now, doesn't God want me to enjoy my life? Doesn't God give me good things so that I can enjoy them? He does. So let's go back to the car for a minute. Now, imagine that I gave that car to my oldest son, who is no longer in the building right now, so I can talk about him. Imagine I gave that car to my oldest son. He's 18, almost 19. All right? So if I gave him that car, now I'm not giving him that car, so don't get any ideas, Carter. But he takes it all the time. Sometimes I walk out and it's just gone, so it's almost like it's his car now. So maybe I've given it to him de facto. But if I gave him this car, would I be giving it to him so that he could use and enjoy it? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. Is his enjoyment the ultimate purpose that I would have in giving him the car? No, it's not. How can I tell? Because what would I feel like if he went and decided, you know what would give me the most enjoyment is to take this car out in the woods and shoot it and smash it with sledgehammers. That might give him a lot of enjoyment. Him and his buddies could have a ton of fun doing that, right? How would I react if he did that with the car that I gave him? I would go ballistic. He would be earning money to replace the car for sure, or I'd kick him out of my house. No, but he's never going to do that. He's a great kid. But here's the point. You can see that it's not his enjoyment that's my ultimate purpose. Otherwise, I would be happy if he did the thing that made him the most happy with the car. But no, I'm only happy if he uses the car and enjoys it in a certain way. Because actually, in that instance, I am concerned about what kind of person he's going to become. That might not be visible on the surface, but I think it's there for all of us, those of us who give our children things. We want them to use them well and take care of them, and for those things to help them become a certain kind of person. We maybe don't think about it always that way, but it's there. It's there, and that's powerful. All right, so now we're going to get down to the actual purpose of money. We looked at a couple of traps. We'll get to the purpose of money, read a couple of scriptures, and wrap this thing up. Last predictive text sentence. Ready for this one? This is my favorite. Money for the youth rally. Money for the youth rally. Now, when I read this one, I thought, okay, Google actually does know stuff about me, right? Google actually does know stuff. I was a youth pastor for 10 years, right? I've raised money for lots of, we don't really call them youth rallies anymore. That's kind of old school. Update your stuff, Google. But youth events, youth mission trips, I have raised lots of money for these things and given lots of money to them. All right, now, how does this get us toward the purpose of money? Well, if we were raising money or giving money or using money for the youth rally, we are giving something to those young people, right? To teenagers in that moment. We're giving them a gift. And do we want them to enjoy it? Yeah, we definitely do. If we send that youth group off maybe next year, or who knows when it's going to happen next, the year after, to the Momentum Youth Conference, can I get a shout out? If we send them off to that, do we want them to enjoy Momentum? Yes, definitely. We definitely want them to enjoy it. Is that the reason we're sending them to Momentum? Absolutely not. That's not the ultimate purpose. The enjoyment of it is in order to get them to a certain place. We want them to go there and become closer to God, to learn about God, and to grow in their relationship with Him and with other people who are close to Him. That's the purpose. That's the purpose. And so let's look at this last point. Here is the actual purpose of money. The purpose of money is to help people grow. That might not seem like on the surface. Is that really the true purpose of money? Does that encapsulate all of it? I want to say yes, it does. Let's look at a couple of scriptures to back that up, okay? And we'll think about them in a particular way. Here we go. First scripture, Acts 17:27. I love this verse. Paul, one of the early followers of Jesus, he's giving a message to a whole bunch of people here. And in this message, he talks about the whole history of the world. Everything that God's done from the beginning, kind of like I did today, all these things. And then he says, God did this. That is everything, the whole history of the world. Giving human beings the earth and the land that they have and directing all of history. God did this so that human beings would seek Him and perhaps reach out for Him and find Him, though He's not far from each one of us. So everything that God did, including giving you everything that you have, including allowing you to have all the money that you have, God did so that more and more people would seek Him and would find Him. Next scripture. Luke 16, 9-10. This is Jesus Himself, and He's going to say this in a little bit different way here. This is at the end of a parable He's told about how to use money well. And He says, I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it's gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Jesus' advice is to use money to build relationships. Now, I said at the beginning, the point was the purpose of money is to help people grow. Help people grow how? Help people grow in all kinds of ways, in their character, in who they are, but ultimately in their relationship with God and with other people. And here we see Jesus saying that very clearly. What's His advice on what you should do with your money? save it up, get as much as you can, get as much stuff, spend and waste. No. Is his advice, enjoy your life as much as you can. Make sure you retire early and you can do whatever your dream is. Actually, no, that's not his advice. Though he does want you to enjoy your life. In fact, he knows that you're going to enjoy friendships and relationships more than you will the thing you think your dream is. His advice is use it to build relationships. And then ultimately those relationships to help people be drawn toward God. Last scripture for today. Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 to 21. We read this earlier in our offering moment. Here we go. The words of Jesus, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moth and rust do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. Okay, and then listen to this. This is a teaching that re-envisions the whole world. It makes those who are blind able to see, if you can understand it. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Jesus is the smartest person ever. He knows more than you. He knows more than me. He knows everything. And what he is giving us here is a vision for how we can lead our own hearts. Do you see it? Have you ever wanted to want something but not really wanted it? Have you ever wanted to love a person you should love but you really didn't like them? Have you ever wanted to love God more but you didn't know how to get there? I want to love God. I want to have, just like we talked about the last 12 weeks of summer, a heart that is burning with love for God, because I know that would make my life so much better. But I don't have this strong, strong love for him. How can I get there? Jesus is giving you one of the ways right here. And in so doing, he is showing us the purpose of money. He's given you stuff. If you use that stuff for things of God, you will love God more. Your heart will follow where you put your treasure, where you put the things that God has given you. The money in our society, in our world today, often our treasure is, to a large degree, our money. And if you put that toward things of God, your heart will follow it. If you take most of your money and put it toward your own enjoyment, where's your heart going to go? It's going to go toward yourself. Jesus is telling us here the purpose of money, and he's telling us how we can use money to lead our own hearts. We're going to continue to talk about this next week. I'll leave you right there. Let's pray and we'll continue in worship. Our Father,